Post-traumatic stress is a terrible mess. It makes you sad. It makes you mad. It makes you want to die. When you're in a crowd, you think out loud, I'd rather be alone. No one knew this would happen to you, so far away from home. You wish you could sleep and try to keep these memories from haunting you. But all you can do is toss and turn. You're suffering from something you did not earn. The real enemy lies within. If you don't fight it, you'll never win. Well, I was born in Boston, Massachusetts. No, my father didn't serve. He was run over by a truck, and so he got a medical deferment. He had a very good job with Chase Manhattan Bank in the city, and he was an account supervisor. My mother was a practical nurse. We eventually moved to Wellesley. It was a real treat for me because the girls from the Wellesley College used to babysit for me. I was just a little kid, you know. And then we moved to Elmont, and from Elmont, we moved to Freeport. I spent a lot of time there, went to high school there. Then I was drafted out of, I was going to Nassau Community College at the time, and it was an economic situation where at the school I was going at night school because I was working full-time during the day. So I couldn't carry the necessary credits that you needed for a military deferment. You needed 12 credits. I had 9. And so I got drafted. And that to me was the worst day of my life when I got my draft notice. It was like receiving a possible death warrant. All of a sudden you're a college student and then you get your fucking draft notice. I remember I asked my dad, Dad, what should I do? So I said, Dad, I was thinking about going to Canada maybe. And he goes, well, he said, you may never be allowed to come back again. And so he just outlined the different things, you know. So I ended up going.
Good evening, my fellow Americans. I'm glad to be able to begin my report tonight by announcing that I have decided to increase the rate of American troop withdrawals for the period from May 1st.
This is when Nixon was starting to withdraw troops from Vietnam. And so, being stateside, I said, maybe I can maneuver my environment to the point where by the time I get orders to go over there, the war's ended. Or it's decreased to the point where they're not sending many troops over there. So what I did was I had very high IT scores. So I ended up qualifying for what they call NCO school. That's non-commissioned officers school. When it came time to receive my commission, my stripes, I went up there. I refused. After going through hell to get these stripes, I refused to accept them. And so they put me in what they call a holding camp. It's a place where they send dropouts. And then I saw a soldier working with German Shepherds. I asked the guy, I said, how long is the training? Because I'm trying to stay stateside. You don't get killed stateside. There's no Vietnamese over there shooting at you. So he told me, you know, you go through so many months of on-leash training, and then if you qualify, you can go through so many months of off-leash training. So I signed up. But I didn't understand all the full ramifications of signing up. You were basically signing up to be a point man, which was probably one of the most dangerous jobs in Vietnam. I had the highest score ever recorded at the Fort Benning Scout Dog School. I had a 96 out of 100. So the lieutenant in the school said, this Sawyer is so good, we want to send him over to Nam where he can save troops. The Army has a way of not telling you everything about what to avoid and what to not to avoid, you know. I took my dog out one day, and I had forgotten to carry his water ration. I was supposed to have enough for myself, enough for my dog. So I actually gave him my water, but it wasn't enough. He was like really thirsty. We happened to be near a stream, so I went over there and I let him drink from it. They didn't tell us that these streams could be contaminated. My dog died. I bonded with this dog. You know, we were best buddies. He saved my life on numerous occasions by alerting, you know, to the enemy. Their means of why they use the dogs, their sense of smell was 40 times greater than ours. Their sense of hearing was 20 times greater than ours. And their sense, it had to be a moving object. Their sense of seeing a moving object was 10 times greater. So you went out there and you had an edge against the enemy. I know for a fact that between me and my dog, we did save many lives. I remember one time in particular, we were walking on this dirt road, and there was a bridge that we had to go over. And my dog, he threw the strongest lure that I ever saw. They take their nose and they, you know, like they're sniffing. And so he started sniffing. And I said to my sergeant, I said, Sarge, I said, tell the troops to spread out nonchalantly. There's a berm, and then there's a rice paddy. I said, jump into that rice paddy if you want to live. As they jumped into the rice paddy, the enemy opened up, and I was the only one standing there. I think I froze. I was scared shitless. I looked down because I figured, this is it. My life's going to end. Actually, I did see flashbacks real quick. I saw the ground digging up all around me. And so I thrust my chest out to receive the Vietnamese lead, right? I thought in that moment that I was going to get shot, that I was going to die. And that could be the most terrifying feeling in the world. But when it doesn't happen, when you're not hit, when you're not killed, when you survive it and nothing happens to you, it's the biggest high in the world. Bigger than any drug, bigger than anything that could happen to you in the world. After that, I became a different person. There was always 2 dog handlers and 2 dogs on a mission. And one walked point and one walked in the rear for security. The other handler's dog broke loose from his leash and he started barking. We were ordered to put the dog down. I wasn't, but the handler was, the other handler. So I wouldn't let that happen. He was going to have to take his bayonet and stab his own dog. I said, no way. So I walked in on the dog. I patted him, you know, and petted him nice. And he's wagging his tail. You know, he's licking my hand. He's acting like a buddy, right? So I figured, good. Oh, we don't have to kill him. I didn't want to. I wasn't going to let it happen. So I went to put the working harness on the dog, right? It happened so fast. The next thing I knew, my hand was in the dog's mouth. And their biting capacity is 400 pounds per square inch. They called the helicopter and they got me to the hospital, and they saw that I had a very bad injury. After that happened, I was not allowed to, I didn't want to walk point anymore. And so I ended up running an NCO club. It's ironic that a dog could save my life. And the dog who I tried to save his life. And I did. They didn't put him down. It's natural for somebody going through traumatic experiences to not admit that there could be a possibility of you being affected by it, of you being not normal, you know, of having something that's going to stay with you for the rest of your life. And it's a gradual process. When I got out, I got lost in all these, or involved in, you know, like in studying wrestling. I ended up winning several championships in wrestling. After I graduated from Nassau, I went to Southampton because my parents had the house here. I was on Dean's List, and then Vietnam caught up with me. I started having nightmares and flashbacks, grinding my teeth. I didn't know what was wrong. Once again, the military, if they had told you to watch out for certain symptoms or watch out for, conditions and feelings, that you could probably get help to deal with it. I didn't want to live anymore. I know what it's like to be suicidal. I know what it's like not to want to live anymore. Lack of energy, no hope. One day, this was the beginning of my nervous breakdown. My parents were in the house, and I stepped outside on the deck just to go from inside to outside, right? And when I went outside, my mind stayed inside. I actually lost my mind. I was totally out of it. And I proceeded to have a nervous breakdown. And I was committed to a psychiatric ward at Mother Cabrini Hospital in the city. The best way I can describe it, it was like the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I remember one time I'm trying to eat my food, and there was this huge guy behind me. And he picked up my plate and he put it in his mouth. He just poured it into his mouth. I couldn't believe it. It was crazy. I was in there for 30 days, and then I came home. I had started running. It made me feel better. I remember I ran into this man who was looking. He had a lost cat. I was running down Noyak Road, and I saw the cat. It turned out that the cat was on a former classmate of mine at Freeport High School. His name was Ray Smith, and he happened to have a tree company. We just started talking, and he asked me what I was doing. And I said, well, not a hell of a lot. He said, would you be interested in going to work for me? I went to work the next day, occupying my time instead of sitting around and watching TV and having no interest in life, So I ended up learning all the aspects of tree surgery. And then the biggest decision I had to make in my life was to go to work, start my own business. To have your own business can be very gratifying. And you're the boss. You don't have to take orders from anyone. I remember I was spending a lot of money on advertising in all the yellow books. And I said, there's got to be a better way. So I came up with an idea. I said, I'm going to establish a world's record for splitting wood. And I said, I can use that, the Guinness Book, as a frame of reference for my business. I split a full cord of wood in 53 minutes and 43 seconds. I consider myself to be an artist. My poetry makes me feel good. It's a way of me expressing my emotions and my feelings. That's a soldier's silent scream. He's trying to shut out the horror of war. Also, he's dropped his weapon, so he's totally defensive. I commissioned Jerry Glassberg to make this. A soldier's silent scream says more than it will ever mean. He's seen things we will never see. He's heard things we will never hear. He speaks of things we will never understand. He's done things we will never do. He's sacrificed himself, fighting for God and country too. War is the final destination of fear and hatred. I tell you, I appreciate my life now. I'm getting 100% disability. I have to say it. The Trump is actually, it seems like he's really trying to help out veterans. And I wasn't that crazy about him before. But if you think, I still don't know for 100%, but that's what everyone's telling me, and that's what I hear, you know. So you almost have to believe it, even though it might not be coming from someone who you're that crazy about. I don't really have to worry about anything financially. And that's a nice burden. But once again, I don't know if I mentioned this before. I think off camera I might have, that I feel good that I started walking Gerard Drive to increase my longevity months before I got awarded 100%. I cared enough about myself that it wasn't because I was getting money from the government, right? That's the icing on the cake. And I think that every veteran, if they deserve it, they should be getting the goddamn icing on the cake. 12 years ago, people didn't even have an inkling of what post-traumatic stress was, you see. And not that many veterans were committing suicide like they're committing as we're talking. You have somewhere in the neighborhood of 20, 22 veterans as we're talking ending their lives today. During the Civil War, they noticed that these veterans were really suffering mentally, emotionally, from the combat, the stress of war. Back then, it was called Soldier's Heart. Soldier's heart you'll never see. It was born and raised in the infantry. His heart, though wounded, continues to beat, going through life on wandering feet, in search of a cure which will help him endure the pain he feels inside. No one knows what he's been through to save his country from me and you. Please, dear God, help rest his soul. He's been through so much. He needs your touch to make him whole.